Well, hey everyone, thanks for joining me in this video. I'm going to go over kind of the life coaching process that I use when I'm working with a particular client and we're working through some of their goals. This is the process that I use for my life coaching. And what I did is I created something called the life coaching wheel. And this just kind of breaks down what those steps look like when I'm working with a client in coaching. So I'm going to show you kind of what this process looks like. I'm going to go over each of these areas. We're going to start with the inner circle, and then we're going to work our way out into the outer green circle there. And if you have any questions about my life or business coaching, you can visit my website at isaaccano.com. It's really easy to schedule a coaching session on my website. You can click a day and time to schedule with me. You can securely pay for your coaching session online. So I try to make it as easy as possible. But if you have any questions, you can visit my website at isaaccano.com. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the first slide here. And the first part of the coaching journey that I take my clients on is what we call kind of defining the vision for their lives. We want to understand where the client wants to go at in a specific area in their life. And the question that I like to ask to kind of help get the imagination going is this question, which is, what do you want to see happen and why does it matter to you? What do you want to see happen and why does it matter to you? So when a client connects with me and we're doing a coaching session, there's a key area in their life that usually they're wanting to see some kind of outcome. And some of the key areas that most of my clients will focus on, maybe include their career. So maybe they're trying to move up in a position, maybe they're trying to start a new business. It could be their finances. They're possibly trying to save up to buy a home, or they're trying to pay off some debt. They could be trying to make healthier decisions for their body. They're trying to eat healthier, they're trying to exercise. Or maybe they're just trying to improve their relationships. Maybe they're trying to work on setting some good goals for their marriage. So those are all key areas in their life that they want to see better results in. So I'll ask this question: what do you want to see happen in those areas? What is it in your finances that you want to see occur? What is it exactly that you'd like to see in your relationships? And I'll help them kind of unpack that and we'll clarify what that looks like. And here's why that's important. A lot of people have some really good ideas of where they want to end up in life, but a lot of times they're really abstract. They're kind of abstract ideas of where they want to end up at. They're not really clear. The more we can break those ideas down, the more we can clarify that picture of where they want to be at in the next few months or the next few years, the easier it's going to be for them to take the actions needed to achieve those results. So we're really trying to define where it is they want to end up, what do they want to see happen in that particular area. And then the other side of that question is, why does it matter to them? Why is obtaining this particular result important to them? And what we're doing is we're adding a purpose to this vision, because a purpose-driven vision is powerful. When we don't have a purpose, when we don't have a why, then really what we have is just a dry goal. And there's really no energy behind it. There's no driving force behind it. But when we put a purpose to that vision, when there's a deep reason why we're trying to achieve this vision, then it energizes us. It keeps us motivated. It drives us forward. Some of the responses that a client of mine, will give me for the reason why they're trying to, get out of debt is because they want to be able to leave a lasting financial legacy for their children, or they want to be able to purchase a house and provide for their families. Or if they're trying to make healthy decisions, someone might say, I want to be able to spend as much time with my grandchildren as possible. I want to live as long as I can, so I'm willing to take care of my body to do that. Or they might say, I want to be able to start a business so that I can do what I love and make an impact on the world. So whatever that looks like, when you define that deep purpose for your vision of where you want to end up at, it becomes an energizing goal. It becomes just this empowering vision. So that's where we start at with my clients, as we start with this first part of the circle, which is the vision defining. What do you want to see happen and why does it matter to you? And then we move on to the second part of the circle, which is the plan. So I help my clients develop sort of this plan of action that's going to help them get from where they're at today to where they want to be tomorrow. And some of the questions that I'm going to ask them are, what critical actions should I take and how can I implement them? What are some critical actions I should be taking and how can I implement them? So what we're trying to do is, because where we're at today and where we want to be tomorrow, there's kind of this gap. Sometimes the gap is small. Sometimes the gap is really big and it seems impossible. With our plan of action, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build this bridge that's going to bridge that gap, okay? And that bridge is made up of all kinds of different next steps. So what I'm going to help the client do is figure out what are the most critical actions that you should be taking that are going to help you get to where you want to be. So if someone's trying to pay off debt, then we might ask the question, well, what would that look like? What would paying off the debt look like? What kind of steps would you need to take in order to make that happen? And if the step is, well, I've got to make a minimum payment of $200 a month towards this credit card, or I've got to make a minimum payment of, $400 a month towards my car loan, that's an action that we have to take each month, right? Now, often it's during the planning stage that we identify different hurdles or different obstacles, because some people may realize, okay, yeah, I need to make a minimum payment on my credit card, but I don't have the money to do that. So we're kind of clarifying, okay, these are the critical actions we need to take, but attached to those actions are often hurdles. There's obstacles that are keeping us from moving forward. And it's in this part of the circle during the planning process that we're going to identify those little road bumps, those potholes in the road, to figure out how to get through them. So if someone doesn't have the money to make that minimum credit card payment each month, then the next question is, well, how are you going to implement that? What would it look like for you to create that money? What are some options? Do you need to call your credit card company to work out a payment plan? Do you need to cut back on some of your budget? Do we need to look at your budget and see if there's anything to cut out? Do we need to look into selling some stuff on Facebook Marketplace, or getting a part-time evening job delivering pizzas or cleaning offices? Okay, so we identify the critical actions. Oftentimes there's going to be obstacles that surround those actions, and then we're going to talk through how we want to implement those actions, work through any hurdles, and we clarify a really clear plan, because you may know where you want to go at in life. It's like taking a trip. You may know the destination, but if you don't have a map, if you don't have a roadmap, if you don't know the route, if you don't understand how many miles it's going to take you to drive there, how long it's going to be, how much gas you need to prepare to spend for, to get to that destination, then you're not going to get there successfully. So the plan of action is where we break down those next steps between where we're at today and where the client wants to be at tomorrow. And then once we've talked through that, the next step is we're going to talk about results. And the best way to describe the results is we're going to answer the question, how will you measure success? And what impact is it going to have? How are you going to measure success, and what impact will it have? Now, here's why that's important. Results along the way are what allow us to see how we're progressing. Because during the coaching process, what we want to see happen is we want to see benchmarks. We want to know that we're moving toward our vision of where we want to be. And just like if you're on a road trip and you've got mile markers on the road, we want a way to gauge success, okay? And ultimately, at the end of the day, my goal is to help the client get to the point where they're empowered enough to continue on the journey because of the amount of results that they're seeing, and get them to basically be self-empowered to continue the journey on. In other words, my goal isn't for me and my client to, do life coaching forever. I want to be able to, wean them off the process so that they own the outcome. And in order to do that, we're going to be looking for results along the way. So we're going to be asking questions like, how will I know whether I'm successful this week? What will a win look like that we can celebrate? How will we know that we're getting closer to the finish line? Another thing that we'll do is, as we're moving towards the vision of where they want to be and we're implementing different actions, what we're trying to do is test efforts. We're trying to test things. We're trying to see if these particular efforts are going to work or not. And it's really important during the coaching session that we ask questions, what's working and what's not. One of the things I like to do with my clients is we'll do a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we'll go through the SWOT analysis and we'll just ask questions like, what are the strengths that are working to help me accomplish my goal? What are the weaknesses? What are some opportunities, some ideas that might contribute to our success? And what are some potential threats that might detract us from progress? So the whole goal of this part of the circle is we're trying to measure results so that we know what's working and what's not, and how close the client is getting to achieving their vision. Okay. So that's kind of an overview of the inner circle. Is we talk about vision, we talk about plans, and we talk about results. Okay. Now, here's another key aspect to the coaching process, and this is where we go into the outer part of the circle, because and you've noticed this probably too in your own life, whether you've talked to a friend or a counselor or a mentor, maybe you've read a book on a specific subject, a self-help book. But here's the problem that we run into. Oftentimes we know what we need to do, we know how to accomplish it, we know what kind of goals we want to accomplish, we know what the right thing is, but there's still something that's keeping us from moving forward. How many of you guys know that eating less sugar, eating less junk food is going to be healthy for our bodies, and we should eat healthier, but for some reason we just don't do it, right? There's like these cravings that happen inside of us. So what we do during the coaching process, and this is really the value of life coaching, which again, if you want to schedule a life coaching session with me, I make it really easy. Go to isaaccano.com. You can schedule a day and time. You can pay for your coaching session securely and easily online. But this is the benefit to hiring a life coach, because they're going to pick up on this outer circle, and they're going to be able to help you effectively leverage your whatever it is that's hindering you. So let's talk about the outer circle here. And first we're going to start with thoughts. So our thoughts are often the reason we stay stuck. They're the reasons that we don't take actions. They're the reasons that we kind of sabotage ourselves. So one of the questions that we talk about is, what are the thoughts or self-talk that you're having with yourself? What are some of the beliefs that you're allowing up here in your head? Now, this is really imperative, because what happens is that when someone has a vision to start their own business, and they've come up with a plan, and they're testing different efforts, they're trying to see what works and what's not working. Oftentimes, they'll experience little failures here and there. They won't get the results that they were hoping for. Revenue isn't coming as fast as they hoped. Customers aren't buying as fast as they thought they would. What happens is that when we don't see the results we want, we start having these negative thought patterns. We start thinking things like, well, this must have been a bad idea because I'm not seeing the results I wanted to. Or we say things like, well, I must be a failure because I'm not getting the revenue I was hoping when I started this business. Or we say, well, this marriage must be, not the best fit because we tried some things in our marriage and they didn't work. So we have this negative self-talk that begins to take place, and the goal is to hold those thoughts captive. There's a verse somewhere in the Bible that talks about holding our thoughts captive. We want to evaluate the ideas that we're allowing in our head. We don't want them to run amok. We don't want to give them free range. We want to filter them. We want to take ownership of the thoughts that we're having up here, whether it's about ourselves, whether it's about other people. But we're going to dive in and we're going to address and evaluate every single idea, thought, and belief that we have that might be impacting our success in potentially a negative way. Now, here's the interesting thing about thoughts is that if we allow them to bounce around enough without kind of taking ownership of them, the next thing that happens is that it begins to affect our emotions. It begins to affect how we feel about things. So, one of the questions that we try to answer is, what emotions have you been feeling the most? Now, emotions are very powerful. We often make decisions based on how we feel. Now, emotions are important because they kind of act as red flags or indicators of what's going on at a root level, but we shouldn't react or respond just to how we feel, because oftentimes our emotions can be wrong about something. So, for example, you are trying to pay off debt. It's taking longer than you thought. It seems like it's going to take forever. You're working harder because you've got a part-time evening job doing something. And you begin to feel these different emotions. Okay? You begin to feel like maybe you're ashamed for even getting into debt in the first place. Or you feel like you're never going to get the debt paid off completely. So you've got feelings of discouragement. You're feeling worried about how it's going to affect your credit score. You got all these different emotions that are happening. When you're dealing with starting a business and you're trying to get customers, you're trying to get the word out about your product or service, and people are turning you down, it's really easy for clients to tell me that they feel these emotions of feeling inadequate or not feeling confident. There's a lack of confidence. There's a feeling of self-consciousness, like putting yourself out there for others to see and not getting the results you want can make us feel self-conscious. So there's all these emotions that begin to happen, and oftentimes they're tied to the thoughts and ideas that we're telling ourselves. So what we want to do during the coaching process, again, as we're implementing our plan, we're aiming towards our vision and getting results, we want to be able to gauge the thoughts and ideas that we're telling ourselves, the emotions that we're spending the most time feeling, and then the third thing is we want to be able to address some of the behaviors that are coming out of those emotions and those thoughts. Because oftentimes the thought and emotions that we have a huge impact on how we behave, the attitude that we have, the efforts that we make. They all kind of work together. So let me give you an example of what this looks like. You may have a scenario where, a young man has a successful job, he's doing really good, but then something happens in the economy and he gets laid off. So he tells himself, okay, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off. Maybe he decides to collect unemployment during that time. But he's going to take a couple of weeks off to kind of clear his head and think through his next options. But during that time, he begins to have some thoughts. He's trying to find a job. He's scheduling interviews. Nothing's coming out of that. And he begins to tell himself, well, you're not good enough for these jobs. There are other people who are better than you. There are other people who are more qualified. Or he might tell himself, well, I've got the qualifications, but, the interviews must not have went well. Maybe I don't have the charisma that employers are looking for. So he's having this mind war with himself. He's thinking all these thoughts, and now that's going to affect his emotion. Okay? So then he goes to starting to feel maybe like a little bit of a failure. Or maybe he's having feelings of self-doubt. Maybe he's feeling discouraged. So these different thoughts and these different emotions begin to affect how he behaves. And instead of getting up early in the morning and jumping on the laptop to fill out applications, now he's sleeping in more. He's not setting his alarm, he's sleeping in. Instead of having a healthy, wholesome breakfast, he kind of just, goes into the living room and watches TV. He's becoming a couch potato. He's eating chips and drinking soda. He's just kind of letting go of himself because the thoughts and emotions are strong in his life and they're affecting his behaviors. And what those behaviors and emotions and those thoughts are doing is that it's detracting him from the progress he needs to make in order to successfully find a good job for himself. So there's kind of this down spiraling process that begins to take place. So what I do as a life coach is, as I'm working with the client to help them implement their plan and fulfill their vision and get their results, which are all in the inner circle, I am also helping them gauge their thoughts, their emotions, and their behaviors. I'm helping them be held accountable for the ideas and the thoughts that they're allowing in their head. We're unpacking their emotions together, and then we're addressing some of the behaviors that they have in their life, and we're going to help them develop the healthy habits they need in order to continue to be successful. We're going to address some of the unhelpful habits that might be sabotaging them from moving forward. We're going to try to remove those out of the picture, and we're going to replace them with healthy habits that are going to create energy, that are going to help them get pumped up and motivated to continue working on their plan. So that's kind of an overview of the life coaching process that I work. Now, obviously, it's broken down into a lot more different segments. There's a lot more questions, a lot more different techniques and things that we go through as I'm doing life coaching with a client. But that's kind of the overall picture of what it looks like. I hope this life coaching will give you a little bit of perspective of what goes into the process. Now, again, this is the last time I'll mention this. If you want to schedule a life coaching session with me, you can go to my website at isaaccano.com, and you can easily and securely not only pay for your coaching online, you can also choose the day and time on my calendar. So I make it really, really easy. If you're here in Colorado Springs, we can meet in person. If you're out of state, or if you prefer to meet over a video call, we can do that as well. And then one last thing that I'll mention is that if you are a new client, I want to gift you your first coaching session for free. There's absolutely no strings attached. There's no pressure to continue on if you don't want to. But I want to give you that first coaching session at no cost to you. And here's why. Because I'm just as eager as you to figure out whether life coaching could be something beneficial to you. If it's not something beneficial, if it's not going to help you, then I want us to be able to figure that out early on without you investing any kind of money into it. So I want to be able to have just that first session for free. You can make it 30, 60, or 90 minutes long, whatever you feel you need. And during that first call, we're just going to talk a little bit about, what do you want to see happen in your life, what a plan of action could look like, what some measurable results could look like in your life, and just see what it might look like to work together in the future. And if we think it's going to be a win-win where we partner together, then we can talk about future scheduling. But I'm going to leave that to you. I'm not going to constantly follow up with you or push you into scheduling anything. I want you to feel empowered to make that decision for yourself. So if you haven't received coaching from me in the past, go to my website isaaccano.com and schedule your free coaching session with me today. And I would love to be able to help you determine what a vision could look like in your life that has a deep purpose to it, what a plan of action could look like to help you get to where you want to be, overcome the different obstacles that might stand in your way. I'd love to be able to kind of clarify what the results are going to look like, on how we're going to measure success. And then I'd like to coach you on holding your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors accountable as well, so that you get the best results in your life. So visit me today, schedule your coaching session, and let's see you become successful with your life together.